Hi, this is Brandon Smith from ThirstGym.com. Today we're talking about the bench press versus bands. This is an awesome exercise to develop speed and power for the upper body. It's fantastic if you happen to be a power lifter because it's a great way to build some speed off your chest. So we've got a video on our YouTube channel, on our website, about how to set up bands correctly for the bench press. So I'm not going to go over that in crazy detail, but you need some bands that you can put on the bar where there's tension at the top and the bottom. Ideally, your rack is going to have band peg attachments that you can double the bands up to get the appropriate amount of tension that you need. In most cases than not, if you happen to bench over about 205, 225, you're probably going to want doubled mini bands. If you happen to be underneath that, you're probably going to want doubled micro mini bands. And if you happen to be somebody that's benching well over 400, you might be using doubled monster mini bands depending on how long your arms are. I'd say if you're over 450, for sure you're going to use double monster mini bands for your bench press. Just to be able to get the right amount of tension, because you do want about 20-25% band tension, meaning that at the top we're going to get about 20-25% of what our 1 max is. So if you happen to be a 200-pound bench presser, you want about 40 pounds of band tension at the top. And I can tell you right now that this would definitely be way too much for that, which is why I had the suggestion that I had. So that's that, and that's the setup. You can watch that video, like I said. What we do want with this exercise is, for the most part, if you're performing dynamic effort method, this is the ideal way to do it. And you're going to be focusing on speed so that our loading of this exercise is going to be probably between 40 and 55% than what we need for the exercise. Anything less than that, it doesn't really seem to be enough. You got too much velocity behind the bar. Anything more than that, the bar tends to slow down too much and you're not getting the speed aspect from the speed strength equation. So just keep that in mind. You by all means can do a max effort variation of this exercise to see what your 1 rep max is for it, like I said, for your max effort variation. But I'm just saying in general, that's about where you're going to be for your dynamic effort work, and that's why you have this programmed. So let's talk about how to do it. So now we got the bands on there, our bench press set up, put our hands in our competition grip or a little bit wider shoulder width if you happen to be doing this from a sports performance perspective. Knuckles towards the ceiling, make sure that bar is good in my hands here. I can squeeze it good. I want to make sure I set my shoulders kind of down and back. We don't want to we don't want to just come back and up to where we're shrugged. We want to make sure they're pulled down here. And then what we're going to do, set our feet. Make sure our feet are where we want. We can tuck or have them out. That's up to you. Then we're going to unrack the bar. If you've never bench pressed with bands before, obviously make sure they're going to pull you out, but also make sure you're stable. You may want a spotter for the very first time you're going to do it. But here we're going to unrack, let it stay there. We're going to come down, then press as fast as we can. So if I was actually training, I'd come here, and then we'll rack. So the unique thing about the bands is that they have the overspeed eccentric. So they're constantly pulling down the whole time. And obviously as we press, we're going to get more tension in the bands. But the elasticity of our tendons really like bands because they will allow us to be able to store and output more force. And so that we can technically lift more weight if we happen to be doing this correctly. So the great things about band is you build that elasticity of the muscle tendons better when you have the bands on there, which is why the dynamic effort method works so well for so many people. I'm not going to tell you that you should only do bench like this. This is just one piece of the equation that you can use. If you have been working with athletes, I think this is great to be able to teach them how to be stable, how to press incredibly fast, how to actually apply force into a barbell. Many youth athletes and young trainees have a hard time grasping that concept. I think this is a great way to learn because if you don't press fast, the bands are going to try to pull back down. But also if you happen to be like in season and you're trying to limit the amount of wear and tear on the shoulder, you're obviously getting less load at the bottom, more load at the top. Triceps are going to be demanded to work a little bit harder, so to speak, but you're also going to develop some upper body power. So I'm kind of thinking more football and shot put a little bit, but that's also a great option as well. When it comes to programming, if you're doing dynamic effort method, we already kind of talked about some percentages, about 40-55% in probably most cases. Maybe 55 is the highest. And then you're probably going to do this for about anywhere from 10 to 6 sets, maybe 5 sets of 5, doing mainly triples or things like that. Very standard conjugate-based stuff. If you happen to be taking your heavy work, you can certainly work up to a 1, 2, 3 rep max. I would definitely say this is definitely This is not an exercise that you're probably gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna do 5x5 for, like your work. I think you're probably better off just doing the standard bench press, or if you're gonna do 5x5, do it with a dynamic effort method in mind. Again, this is also usually a supplemental way to build your bench press. This is not the main way to build your bench press. It's just a training tool in the toolbox, and I really like this, especially for my conjugate guys. I think you are very familiar with this. So that's the bench press versus bands. If you got any questions about programming, setup, implementation, anything like that, definitely please feel free to leave in the comment section. Thanks. Have a great day.